Now, the Met Police Chief has defended a police officer who described an anti-Semitism campaigner, Gideon Falter, as openly Jewish at a pro-Palestine rally on April the 13th. So Mark Rowley said the language was clumsy and offensive, yes, but that the officer's conduct had been professional. Well, joining me now is Mike Neville. He's a former Metropolitan Police Detective Chief Inspector. Good morning to you, Mike.
Morning, Gemma.
Thank you so much for joining us. Do you think that the Met Chief was right to praise the professional conduct of the officer, despite him saying, look, you can't walk into this pro-Palestine march because you're openly Jewish?
I don't think the sergeant did anything wrong. The sergeant was in a situation where the duty of you're a sergeant, a PC, your job is to stop a breach of the peace, you stop violence, you stop people getting hurt. And his concerns really that this would cause trouble, and he was there to defuse it. And it's not the sergeant or those individual officers I blame. This is a strategic issue. This is a leadership issue. I've been on this programme time and time again and said, you know, the police have moved away from impartiality. So certain groups get treated a certain way and others don't. So if we look at, you know, if it was the Palestinians or Black Lives Matter, Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, all these fashionable sort of left-wing causes, they are policed in a certain way. They're allowed to get away with things. And then the anti-vaxxers, the Millwall fans or whatever, they're treated in a much more brutal way when they're policed. And there's got to be, it cannot carry on like this. So it is not the sergeant or the PC who is to blame. It is the top level of the Met who've allowed
the
this.
overall policy. No, and I agree with you on that, because that police officer was of the view, and he was probably right in thinking that actually the sight of an openly Jewish man walking through that crowd, whether he was walking across, along with the march, could well have led to some sort of breaching of the peace. But this is the issue, isn't it? It shouldn't do if this isn't a hate march. I've defended the right of these marchers to go ahead because I believe people have a right to protest. But the police should take stronger lines on those who are saying things and shouting things and holding placards, which are clearly hateful and clearly against the law. But we haven't seen that. Now, if an officer is instructed to and tells a Jewish campaigner like Gideon Falter, look, and he was clearly there. It was great. I spoke to him on the show yesterday. It's clearly there. He clearly planned this, and he wanted to show this. But I think he's got every right to do so. I'm going to be there on Saturday. We've got every right to do so. To show that
actually, I agree that
Jewish people aren't safe.
Gideon deserve to be there.
Yeah, Jewish people aren't safe walking the streets or even attending the march unless they're supporting the cause of the march. Having an opposing view and having the quote wrong faith is going to create antagonism. That is proof that the police are scared of the marchers. They're scared of mob rule, in which case, should the organisers of the march be held responsible for this more and take action? Should the police take more strict actions against marchers, or should the Home Secretary close down these marches?
That's right. So the law would allow this. If you could say this caused massive disruption, there's potential for violence, then the Met Police Commissioner should apply to the Home Secretary to have this banned. And this may be a step forward. At some point, these marches have got to be controlled, and the police are just allowing them to go ahead, and they've got to exert some kind of control, and that may mean saying where the route is, what you can do, what times you can do it, but it is getting out of control that Jewish people cannot go around. Now, the campaigner, that he has every right to be there, and he was there to campaign, and what he did is just highlight the issue that it isn't safe for Jewish people to walk around in London, and that is an absolute outrage. How have we ever got to this situation where we allegedly have the most politically correct and woke policing ever, but we have a situation where an ethnic group, i.e. the Jewish people, are not feeling safe in London? It's the absolute madness of the situation of modern policing.
It really is, isn't it? Well, we shall see what happens on Saturday. Also, see interesting what happens with the policing of St George's Day march that is taking place in Whitehall today. I'm wondering how different that's going to be. I just want to ask you, just finally, very briefly, if you would, the Met Chief, has also apologised to Stephen Lawrence's mother, Doreen Lawrence, over the unacceptable failures of the Met Police in terms of investigating and passing on full information to the family about a sixth man believed to have been responsible for the murder of Stephen Lawrence all those years ago. He has since died. But again, yet another failing. The police are being now investigated by another independent force into how they've handled it. The litany of failures over the Stephen Lawrence murder never ends, does it?
Well, there was all sorts of failings, and I personally put those down to sort of incompetence and laziness rather. You know, the big issue was racism all the time. But time and time again, I think there was incompetence and other factors. And you only
I
have to
think there
look at
was
this in
racism too.
murders of white or Asian people as well. And so there's been all sorts of failings. And the Met is really on the ropes, and something needs to be done. And I think really they need to bring in somebody from completely outside. I mean, Mark Rowley is a decent chap, I suppose, but he was an assistant commissioner when a lot of these failings were occurring.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Stephen Lawrence, but a lot of the stuff that's now. And so something needs to change. The Met used to be the flagship. Scotland Yard was the epitome of fantastic policing internationally. Yeah. All that's been lost, and it needs to be regained.
Absolutely. Mike Neville, so appreciate you joining us, former Met DCI. Thank you for that. Really briefly from Tom Slater. I mean, I don't think there's so many people just lost faith in the Met Police. Have they just gone the way of, like, our civil service? They just can't function anymore.
It certainly feels like that. It feels like, you know, you take Stephen Lawrence, the mass lack of faith in police that particular crisis unfurled. You then see almost like an overcorrection in the other direction, where they become so obsessed with kind of identity politics, confusing that for anti-racist politics, they end up putting off a whole nother section of the population.
It's quite bizarre, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed. No doubt we'll talk about that for days on end as well.